Welcome to Entrepreneurial Reality with Bash. Every week we'll be speaking to startup and scale-up founders to learn about them, their ambitions for the business, goals and objectives. Every conversation is a moment in time, documenting entrepreneurs' current situation with a view to coming back next year to see how they are getting on. Each journey will be different. Each innovation could be game-changing. I hope you enjoy. Great. So Series 1, Episode 7. My guest today, if you could introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Reu-el. I am the co-founder of the Patcher app. The Patcher app is a pay-as-you-go breakdown recovery, roadside assistance and vehicle repair app. And it uses independent mechanics within 15 miles of each customer's location to get them up on their feet.
Could you tell me a bit more about how you came about the name Patcher in the first place?
Okay, so initially the app was called Auto Click Fix. Then it became Auto Tap. And then we couldn't get the domain names for either because they were quite common. And it was just getting so frustrating because nothing that we were trying to create was working. We were trying to figure out all these names within the automotive space. And then Sam came up with, why don't we just call it Patcher? Because I guess they're kind of patching people up. And it kind of was like, Patcher, I don't know. But we didn't have a lot of time to really run with different things because the developers were building it. They needed the name so that it could get onto the app store. So we just went with Patcher. And we just hoped that it would grow on us. And it did over time. I mean, we have had some feedback, which has been like, it's not the right name. But I think it's more about the branding and the image. I think the name can work if the branding works.
It is what the name stands for. And the community you build around it and the reputation you build is very, very important.
And I guess for us with Patcher, it enables us to be really creative, like in animation. So a lot of stuff that we do, we're trying to steer away from this like black and white look that a lot of these auto companies have. We're really trying to come as creative as possible. So all like even on our LinkedIns and stuff, all of us are animated characters. Like all the mechanics in the app will be animated characters. The whole app is animated. And because it's called Patcher, it kind of enables us to have that kind of friendly feel to it.
Great, thank you. So give us a bit of background about how you got here in the first place.
Sure. So I've always been quite a entrepreneurial character, I'd say. Both of my parents are quite entrepreneurial. So I've always kind of had that keen interest in business from quite a young age. It really developed after university. During uni, I found myself doing quite a few different extra activities outside of my degree. I used to charge £20 an hour to help tutor like international students. I used to tutor English, like GCSE level, just to make a bit of extra money on the side. I went to university, I studied law, I finished university, I went and started working within law firms, and then I worked for like big corporations. And all of this, you know, before the age of 24, I thought I was this like young businesswoman walking across London. But after that, I kind of really decided that I wanted to do something for myself, but I didn't know what that was. I actually came across Patcher through a breakdown that I actually had. It was like the worst experience. Through that experience, it's what caused Patcher to come about today. So,
oh dear. So don't want to go too detailed about the
quickly.
Experiences, but what happened in the breakdown that caused you to see an opportunity to improve that situation for other people?
I live in an area which is quite remote. So I was coming back from seeing one of the clients that I was working for, just trying to get home, and there was so many country roads and lots of ditches, and I had like a little KA at the time. It just wasn't able to sustain the roads in which I was driving on, and I didn't even break down. I kind of stalled and the car kind of got stuck. I kind of was panicking because I didn't really know what to do in that situation. I'd never broken down before. The first thing I did, because I didn't have AA or RAC, is I called my dad, and my dad called up the AA and asked them if he could put me on his policy so that they can come out and collect me. And they had told him that in order for me to join his policy or to set up a policy of my own, I had to pay up front, like quite a large sum of money. And I just did not have that at that time. If you've broken down, you just need help where you are. And because I hadn't had a policy, they were quite prepared to leave me there on the roadside. So my dad actually went onto Google and did like a extensive search to find a local mechanic who happens to be my business partner now. But he at the time came out to me with his van and was able to tow me back home, which wasn't too far as well. So I kind of figured that there was a way in which I could solve this problem. I can't be the only person who's broken down on the roadside and been stuck and needed help. And the mechanic, who's Clayton, my actual business partner now, we had a few conversations about it. He gave me so much insight into how many jobs a day he does, what kind of jobs they are, why people call him instead of actually calling up their policyholders. And the clear picture out of all of this was that there's clearly a difficulty in people getting access to help when they need it on the roadside, and the lack of knowledge that people actually have when they do break down. Like, where do you go? What do you do?
Great.
So
that certainly sounds quite an interesting application, and very accessible for everybody who can just download it on their phone and access a mechanic when they need to. So could you tell us a bit more about how you're going about getting mechanics, the network, together to be available? Because it sounds like they're very busy already working. So how do you...
So mechanics are a difficult group of people to communicate with. They're very no nonsense. You know, they need to know what they have to do when they have to do it. So initially, you know, we had all these creative ideas of being all fancy to try and actually get through to mechanics, and literally they just didn't want to know. The only person who could actually get through to mechanics was Clayton, because Clayton speaks their language. He doesn't talk nonsense. He doesn't send emails. You know, he calls them up and tells them what he needs them to do, when he needs them to do it. Can they sign up? He explains what needs to be done. And that has really been the basis of how we've been able to build our mechanic network. Clayton is actually able to really build that trust with them.
Yes.
So that's really how we've built our market. We spent a good couple of weeks scouting the whole south of the best mechanics that we could find to join our platform, and we laid it all out in front of them exactly how we could help them build their business. And in doing that, speaking very plainly, a lot of them are quite interested. I think at the moment Reu-el is still available, and that's how a lot of these mechanics were advertising and building their businesses, all through word of mouth. So by creating this platform for them, they were quite interested in a new way of building their actual businesses.
Great. So there's a little bit of diagnosis in the traditional way of a phone call to an RAC or an AA, and they go through a list of questions and say, are you okay? What's the problem? And they then send that information off to a mechanic who then does diagnosis on site as well. Is there any mechanism within the application to cater for that sort of delivery of information to the mechanic up front?
Yeah, so the app is designed to, in the case of an emergency, provide us access the most information that we can, but in the shortest space of time. So if a customer is in an emergency and they need help, literally in the space of a button, they click emergency. It comes up with 7 questions which take under a minute to answer. Basic questions like, how many people in the vehicle? Do you have fuel? Is your fuel gauge light on? It even explains exactly how to check. Once those questions are completed, it gets sent out to all the mechanics within that 15-mile radius, and the mechanics accept on a first come first served basis. So it does do the same thing, but in a much simpler format, and it cuts out, you know, the phone calls and the waiting on the line and the trying to get through to somebody on the other side. It's just very quick and simple.
Great. And as you scale, the challenge will be to maintain the high quality mechanics, the vetting process you go through. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Obviously, in this country, mechanics don't have a very good reputation when it comes to dealing with people's cars. So for us, it was really important to kind of create our own standard, which mechanics had to meet in order for them to be on the platform. And not just creating an initial standard, but having ourselves monitor the mechanics throughout the process of their time with Patcher. So in order for a mechanic to be part of our network, they do go through a very stringent vetting process, which does check the quality, it checks their experience. And only after we've done all of that vetting, we then create them as a Patcher approved mechanic.
Okay.
And then throughout their journey with us, we do regular checks. We help them where we can and provide further training if we can.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of cars these days are becoming more electrically
Yes.
built. So we provide the kind of training and the information for mechanics to kind of increase their knowledge. And also we give the power back to the customers to do a lot of the reviewing of mechanics, which helps mechanics build their profiles and builds trust in them to gain more, work from the app.
Very, very interesting. So is the app available today? Is it publicly available?
So we are doing a relaunch September 1.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided that when we launched earlier this year, we were getting quite a lot of work through the app, and the app wasn't able to sustain the amount of work that was coming through.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided to revamp our app and kind of rebrand ourselves, and then do a launch in tranches across the next 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully by this time next year, we would have launched across the entire UK, but it is going to be a gradual launch this time. We want to make sure that we are covering each county in each area of the UK with a good set of mechanics. So it is available from September 1.
So how many mechanics do you think you would need to get complete coverage of the United Kingdom?
So we are aiming to have at minimum 8 mechanics per county.
Mm-hmm.
So that's split up into those that provide general repair work.
Mm-hmm.
This could be like general repair mechanics, also roadside assistance and recovery. But if we can cover 8 per county, it means that we have mechanics within 15 miles of each area, which means there's always somebody where a customer will be.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of the fees, how does that work?
For the customers?
Yes.
So for customers, it's a pay-as-you-go app, which means that there's no subscriptions or renewals or anything like that. We simply take a percentage of each job that's done throughout the app.
Okay.
The app is split up into 2. So we have emergency roadside, and then we also have repair, depending on the service that somebody may need. And we have a relationship with mechanics. We try and build a business relationship with them where we have different rates for different services.
I see. And then they're published on the app as well. So
the mechanics know beforehand what they're getting into, and the customers know what costs they'll be incurring.
Great. And so what are the challenges that you faced in building the app in the first place?
The first challenge I would definitely say is the lack of knowledge. Myself, I come from a legal background. Clayton is a mechanic, but he's not a tech developer. And my other business partner, Sam, is an accountant. So none of us have any knowledge of tech and how things are built, how the technology works. And I think from the beginning, that has been the biggest challenge, and just not knowing and not been able to have those kind of conversations with the developers. So we have put complete trust in the developers to be able to deliver the idea that we have in our mind of what we want the app to be able to do, but not being able to actually have the detailed conversations that are needed for that has been very, very challenging. Luckily, we have a really great development team who take time to explain and take time to give us a full understanding of exactly what it is that they're doing. That's good. So over the past year or so, our knowledge has improved. But from the beginning, I'd say that's definitely been the biggest challenge. We can only anticipate what we know.
Yes.
But if we don't know what they're doing, or we don't have real background knowledge into development, it's very difficult to really understand how long things are going to take, timeframes, why things go wrong, why this bug happened, why that bug happened. So
how do you source the skills then, the developers in the first place, for the benefit of people who are listening to this podcast who have a great idea but don't have the skills? You need to go to market and establish those skills. So how did you do it?
Well, I was told about this app called Shaper. I don't know if anybody's heard of it.
Oh, yeah.
Shaper is absolutely fantastic. Shaper enabled me to connect with investors, connect with developers, and I literally built a lot of the teams around me that have helped me develop this app through Shaper and the connections that I get through there. So the developers, I connected with a guy who represents the team there, and they were a startup as well. So we were bootstrapping right at the beginning. So cost was very important that we kept within our budget. And as a startup, they were looking for like their first set of clients to work with. So we just luckily happened to be in the right place and needed each other at the right time, and connected through Shaper. And that's how I found the development team. And also through a lot of networking events that I've been to. So I know that it can be a drag to constantly go to different events, but it really helps you build your network as well. Find the people. If there's somebody that knows somebody that can help you, they let you know. And it's a really good to kind of build that community of support.
That's great insight. Thank you. So what are your ambitions then? You mentioned over the course of the next few months to the year, you'll be covering the entire UK. Is that realistic, do you think?
Well, it's realistic in terms of having the app in place ready across the UK. We don't want to launch all at once because it's going to put a lot of pressure on the app. But to have the app spread out with the right amount of mechanics across the UK will be accomplishable within the next 12 months. It doesn't necessarily mean that the app will be in full use in every single county across the UK. And obviously breakdowns and repairs, are subjective to people's situations. So we can't predict how many people are going to break down every single year. We can use past data, but obviously it's not set in stone. So for us as an app to have ourselves across the whole of the UK within the next 12 months is our main aim. And to have like the quality of mechanics that we have on our platform. Our real main focus to kind of achieve that is to ensure that people are aware that we have quality mechanics here. When anyone's ever looking for a mechanic, they always do search through Google, and mechanics pay for Google AdWords these days. They're quite clever in making sure that they're straight on the first page. So you call the first one because you need help, but you don't necessarily know how good of quality they are as a mechanic. So if we can build our app and launch it across the whole of the UK within the next 12 months and have those quality mechanics set in those places ready to work, that's really going to be a big accomplishment.
Cool. I'll watch with interest and come back in 12 months time and
absolutely
and share your journey. That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Okay. What recommendations would you give to our listeners, the people who are in a similar position to yourself, that from your experiences to date, is there anything in particular that stands out that would be valuable? I
think for me, the first thing would be to ensure that everything that all your documentation, like your financials, your business plan, your pitch deck, your exec summary, is really thorough. Research your market properly, because you just don't want to get caught out. People research your market as well, especially if you're going to meet investors and anyone who's trying to help you. They'll do the research, and if they know something that you haven't looked into, it's really quite embarrassing. And you kind of have to rethink. And for us, it was definitely something that we did not do enough of at the beginning. It took us a long time to really get into our stride in this business and really understand our market in full. It means that you have to get a mentor or join up to like a accelerator or something, where if all you gain from it is just help to get that starting step done, then I would definitely advise to do that. It saves a lot of time when you do things properly the first time.
And you mentioned investors. So are you in the process of raising funds?
We've literally just started raising for our seed round. So we've bootstrapped, and we've also raised like a small amount initially within the past 12 months. We've wanted to really do it ourselves, at least get ourselves out the door on our own first. So now we're in a position where we can actually start raising. And between I would say March and now, it's just been learning to get that information correctly, make sure your valuation is correct, and making sure that our financials make sense. Do the numbers actually add up, and where have you got this data from? So important, because investors just want to know that they're going into a market which actually is going to yield them something. You have to just prove yourself and prove your market if you're going to raise any kind of funds. That's what I'd say. Probably.
So in terms of how much equity are you looking at selling for the money?
So at the moment, we're looking at parting with 15% equity in our business. And that is just based on the fact that we believe that I wouldn't say it's too high, but some people would question it to be quite high. But for the 300k that we're looking for, I think that is worth it. There's a lot involved in this kind of startup, and we're not just looking for investors to give us the money and let us run with it. We're really trying to learn as well, and gain from them. So it's more than just an investment opportunity. It's more of an opportunity to also be part and get involved and kind of mentor the team as well to help us get further on.
Yeah, that's good to hear. It's good to hear. Many entrepreneurs I've interviewed have expressed a keen interest in not only the money, it's actually the skills and the value that the investors bring to the table as well. So,
exactly.
Yeah, it's very valuable.
Yeah.
It's got me thinking, actually, you're looking at independent engineers, mechanics to support and deliver a service. Have you had any conversations with the likes of AA, RAC, Green Flag and so on? Because it could become a bit like an Airbnb where you have independents providing a service through the application, but you also then have big industry bodies, big companies coming in and using that platform as a route to market.
So we haven't had conversations with, the AA and the RSC, but we have had conversations with companies who do provide this service, but on a B2B level that are trying to launch out to B2C. It's very difficult for them to do so because of the competition from the AA and the RSC. So we have had conversations with a couple of companies who are quite big but are trying to get into the B2C market. So by providing this platform, it enables them to take on that opportunity as well. And obviously with their name behind them, customers already, having other insurance policies through these companies, opens them up to the opportunity of having themselves on the platform. So we are definitely trying to create this marketplace where people can access the support and the help they need for their cars. And we do want to we are planning to work with some of the bigger companies who want to break into the B2C market as well.
Interesting. And so what, are you looking to white label your platform for the benefit of these large organizations, or would it be no, Patcher is the brand, is the marketplace, and they sell through?
So that's the plan. So Patcher would have to be the brand and the marketplace that they can use to access more customers, or even to access customers that they already have within various insurance policies that they may have. The thing with Patcher is it's more than just an emergency app. You have to think the long term here. When you break down or when you need to fix your car, it's just a whole load of processes that are involved. Like, you have to call up the AA firstly to pick you up on the roadside. Then they drag you to a garage or drag you home, depending on where you are, if they can't fix you. Then after that, you've got to try and call in the garage and find out if they've got an available appointment. Then you've got to think about a courtesy car, or how long are you going to be out without a car for? Think about your train journey if you're not going to be driving. Think about if the garage can actually take your car. And then when they finally do take your car, you're constantly calling them up to try and find out, when have you fixed my car? Is it finished? Is it not? What's the problem? Then they're telling you that you have to pay £1,000 or £800 for a new cam belt and this, that, and the other. There's a whole load of processes that we're trying to completely eliminate through the app, enabling people to find the service they need straight away. The app has an inbuilt booking system so that you can look at all the garages across your area. You can book yourself into these garages based on their availability. So there's no need for all the processes and all the people that you have to call. So in the long term, because of that greater benefit, we can't white label the product for the basis of other companies. It has to be a Patcher product where companies use.
Understand. Cool. I'm getting quite excited.
It's very exciting.
Yeah. So I read a lot. I listen to audiobooks. I do that for continual learning. So could you tell us what book you're reading, or what book you'd recommend somebody to read or listen to now?
Sure. So I don't read that many books around business. I do listen to a lot of podcasts and get a lot of information from there. But one book that I definitely recommend, which is the first ever book that I read around this kind of like business side of things, was Better, Stronger, Faster by Brad Rosser, which is a book. He actually worked with Virgin and Richard Branson to help build Virgin as a business way back right at the start. And in the book, it just is like literally a walkthrough of so many different Virgin startups that have come through and what's happened with them. It talks about why things didn't work, what's important for a business when you first start. And it just walks through, like, Virgin Active, as we know right now, is very successful. It talks about why they became so successful and why Richard Branson and their team decided to take them on as a startup in Virgin Startup. So that was a really, really good book. And also, it sounds very boring, but I do literally religiously follow the guides and the steps in the Financial Times Startup Guide. It's literally like the Bible for startups. I don't think you should not have a copy of this book. And it cost me about £30 from Waterstones. It was definitely a well invested £30 because it really is literally all the way through. It even talks about SEIS and EIS, stuff that if you don't know about startups, you wouldn't know.
So for the benefit of the listeners who may not know what SEIS and EIS means, just put you on the spot.
It is a assurance from HMRC and the government, which gives investors tax relief off their investments into startups, which is very appealing. In fact, a lot of investors won't even invest in a startup which isn't even SEIS assured at the minimum. So that's something that we didn't know, but through that book I was like, what's this? I need to get SEIS assured. So I definitely advise doing that. But that book is definitely a really good guide to what you need to do. I do feel like sometimes in this entrepreneur world, and there's a lot of talk about, read this book, you have to listen to podcasts, wake up in the morning, put your podcasts in, do your yoga, and this whole journey. But in reality, is it turning into practical actions in your business? There's no point being in the clouds with all this stuff. Is it going to be practical? Is it actually helping you progress? So I think that's why that startup guide is really good, because it actually gives you what you need to do. And if you don't do it, then, it's your loss, basically.
I love it. Doing rather than thinking and talking.
Yeah.
Is there a particular entrepreneur or business person or even an individual that you're following at the moment or aspire to be?
At the moment, I'd say I follow quite a few entrepreneurs on Instagram and online and stuff. But my biggest inspiration has definitely been my parents. Like we've come from not the best upbringing in terms of our environments. My parents really struggled quite a lot when we were young, and they really decided to put a lot of their efforts into trying to start their own businesses to make our lives a lot better, and it completely changed everything. So I don't follow them now because obviously they've done all of that, but I do pay a lot of attention to the things that they tell me, because they have a lot of information and wisdom that really does help, and they're really inspiring. Even though my dad said he won't use my app because he doesn't have a car that needs it. So, and the reason I say this as well is because obviously I don't know everybody's situation, but for me, my parents only have my best interest, so they don't fill my head with stuff. They're really real and straight to the point. It's so refreshing because they definitely give me the straight line talk about what needs to be done. So
what have you done?
What have you done, Reu-el, since the last time we had a conversation about this app? My mum is always calling me.
Well, I'm not going to be like your parents, but the idea of the podcast is to understand what you plan to do and then come back in 12 months to tell me, well, have you done it?
And has it been done? Exactly.
Right. Cool. Is there a sport that you like or you partake in?
I'm really heavy in the gym at the moment. I really quite get into the gym, especially in the mornings. It really does help me clear my mind. I'm trying to start yoga. There is a yoga Pilates place underneath my apartment, and I try and go, but it's just not working with the times. But the gym is 24 hours. I try and get in there as much as I can. I'm starting martial arts next week with my brother. So
cool. What style?
So it's kind of mixed martial arts.
Brilliant. I have a keen interest in martial arts as well.
Yeah?
So Tang Sudo, Korean karate. I've done Taekwondo as well. So I'm a big believer in physical activity with a view of keeping yourself healthy. Facing adversity and overcoming it, because I think that translates very well into business.
Absolutely.
Into entrepreneurship as well.
Absolutely. So. I guess that's why so many people do so many weights and stuff in the gym. I'm telling you, every time I'm in the gym, I usually go either really late at night when no one's there or really early in the morning. And you can tell that those that go early in the morning or late at night are mostly entrepreneurs, because they're all powerlifting in the gym. You can tell that they've got something on their mind that they're trying to clear. So,
great. I wish you all the best with
Thank you.
the fitness.
The martial arts.
The martial arts, yeah. Enjoy it. Embrace it.
Yeah.
Excellent. And then there's this question I ask every year to every entrepreneur, and it will hopefully change in terms of the answer you provide. And it's, what would you do differently knowing what you know now?
I would have created a vision board much earlier than I did. I think my vision board has been the real reason why a lot of things have kick-started for me. If you can get that done early and just put out there exactly what it is that you're trying to achieve visually, so that you can see it all the time, and I definitely think that would be the first thing that I'd do. And the second thing I'd do is just try and be as researched as possible. Just know your market, know exactly what you're going to do. Even if you're not even from that industry, it doesn't really matter. Just know as much as you can about it. Speak to people who know about it. We're lucky because we have Clayton, who's an actual mechanic, so it helps a lot. But if if you weren't a mechanic or if plating wasn't part of this business, I'd still go out there and spend time with mechanics to try and understand the industry way more than I did.
Thank you. That's the end of our podcast.
Okay.
The first conversation of many, I hope.
Yeah.
So, yeah, excellent. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
And I hope you come back and share with all the listeners your journey over the next 12 months and see how you progress.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
So what do you think? We'll have another interesting story to dive into next week. Looking forward to it already. Some questions to you in the meantime. What is your story? What is your reality right now? And what are you working towards? Let me know. So you can connect with me on Twitter. Just type in Bash in the search and you'll find me. So Bash, B-A-S-H. Easy. On Instagram, it's Bash Reality. So that's Bash_reality. And on LinkedIn, Benjamin Ashmore. Make sure you subscribe, and until next week, cheers.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.